Hey, welcome back to this Mike's Gold Affinity Stratocaster. I was just saying to my friend Mark, who's here with me today, I've probably gained a suntan since 5 minutes ago when I was on this video, because a bit of time has passed, a week or two even, and since then I've been out in the garden, sunbathing a bit, and so on and so on. So what I want to do is to get a new nut on Mike's guitar, which I've got sitting here ready to go, and let's just check it's good enough. Yep, we'll get that new nut on, we'll get the tuners back on after we've given them a little bit of a clean, and oh sorry, you should be looking at the guitar, not me. Saws. Yeah, new nut, tuners on, and the end of this nozzle is getting a bit gooed up. Tuners, restring, and then a precision fret leveling, and Mark's here to, well, we're doing some work on his Les Paul, Epiphone Les Paul studio, which is down on the beanbag down there being clamped because it's been refretted, and so we're working on that. And while those frets are glowing, this isn't said in my best Welsh, while they're glowing, I'm going to do this little bit of work on Mike's Strat, and also show Mark in detail the fret leveling process, which I do. So next thing I want to do is get these tuners, because obviously I'm going to need to get the guitar strung up, so that we can get it under playing tension. And this is going to require a sacrificial set of strings, so hopefully, I'm not sure what I've got, but I'm going to have to dig around and find. Oh, nearly dropped my naphtha. So I've got to get a set of strings that will do this. Now I have forgotten what Mike wanted in terms of gauge, so I'm going to need to either consult my messenger or send him a quick message and ask him, because I'll be live social metering. But for the purpose of this part of the setup, it will do to use a 9 or a 10 sacrificial set. The difference between the two in terms of the settings will be quite slight. So I'm just giving these machine heads a bit of a polish up, and I'm ready to go. That nut should be, I'm throwing this stuff around like I'm pissed. Dear me. I haven't sniffed any of it. Okay, so this is Mark. This is the world watching this.
Oh, hi.
Which is different from the world watching Mark's guitar a minute ago. Yeah, so what we're doing with this is Mike's Affinity Squier. He got given this, which was great for his young lad, and I've refretted it with jumbos. There's a little nick down here that I've got my eye on, which I need to fret level out in the final analysis. But so I've originally taken all this stuff off. The neck itself had some weird wooden inserts, because obviously the holes had shagged. Yeah. And these were little rods put in to kind of thicken the holes up. So I drilled those out and put full size dowels in, and then recut holes. So the neck is nice and firmly on now.
Instead of being shimmed to the body.
Yeah, but I actually shimmed it as well, I think, to raise it up slightly, because it wasn't high enough. So I'm going to now fit these tuners back on. I don't know which way around they go. Yeah. So the next thing will be to find a set of. I'm looking for a set of 9s or 10 spare strings, sacrificial strings as I call them. So can you see if there are any likely?
What are these?
I don't know. Is that a complete set of something?
Probably
3,
is. 4, 5.
The problem I've got is that the Strat set has to be.
There's 2 whites, 2 blues, and 2
reds.
reds.
It would be actually, but look, this is probably the only chance, because they're specifically marked Strat.
Oh, there you go.
Reason being is that the Les Paul style is always shorter.
Yeah.
So I've got loads of them, and then when you come to find a set of sacrificial strings for a Strat, I'm always bereft. So yeah, so this has had new frets, and I've what have I done? I've given them a once over pass with thank you, once over pass with the radius block to sort of do a generic. I'm not 100% sure that really makes sense. I do it quite often when I put new frets in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why I don't just leave it. Can you pass me the small monkey adjustable wrench? I'm not sure why I don't just leave it and let the curvy thing do its job. Why I do I had this idea that if I did a quick level with the radius block first, it would take the bulk of it off.
Yeah.
And then I'd fine tune it. I'm not sure if it does.
Yeah, you can probably just go straight to the fine tuning.
I'm beginning to think that, because actually what I've noticed is in the jobs where I've done it in a way that looks on flat, like it's levelled,
yeah.
I end up doing loads of work with the fine tuner, which means that the actual relative level with a guitar neck on flat is actually quite a lot different from the one where it's under load and subject to compression forces,
yeah.
which actually changes my old saying that doing it the flat way is 90% good, and then you add another 5% with the...
Yeah.
It may be like 50 and 40, you know what I mean? It's looking like it's more of a difference.
I think not a lot of other people level the frets with the strings on, so under tension, and you know, as we've seen on my guitar with the bent neck, I think when we come to level that, we'll make it much more playable because we're leveling it to itself rather than to some perceived notion of flatness in the neck.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, that's the really important thing anyway. That it's always only relative, and I keep trying to stress that. It's got to be the thinnest one. It's got to be. This is the real challenge now, with
getting the strings apart from one another without poking yourself in the eye,
and without totally jamming up the other one. Yeah, it's only ever relative level. You know, it's not an
absolute.
An absolute. That's right. It's relative to everything else there. Okay. Now this is the difficult bit about restringing sacrificial strings on a Squier Strat. You've got to go all the way through, and even if I could get this curly whirly bit of string through the block, which I probably can't, since it's such a difficult bendy piece of wire, a badly behaved piece of wire. In fact, it's going to refuse to do it. There's a yellow, orange handled pliers, snub fat nose pliers, orange, rather orangey.
Yeah. Oh, these?
Yeah. The trouble with the Strat wires like this second hand is that they're almost always just a fraction too short to repurpose for sacrificial, which means it ends up costing me a whole new set of strings to do this job, which is a shame, because we're only going to put these on long enough to do a fret leveling and cut the nut slots correctly, and then they're in the bin.
Wouldn't it make sense to have a set of strings
permanently?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the trouble is each time you use them, they do come out more bent and more weakened. So like this one, for example, I managed to get it through, but look how far we get it.
Yeah.
We just get it to the far end. So with a bit of holding it tight so it bends.
If they hadn't been cut originally, you'd have a little bit of extra.
Yeah, but then whoever wants to really... Oh, you mean yes, I see what you mean. A test
sacrificial set
that never got cut.
Yeah.
Oh, you are clever. Maybe, just maybe, I could do that. Maybe I should have done this now instead of trying to straighten these sods out.
Well, I've just spent all the time separating the rest of them, so you know.
Good. Well, we'll use them. Okay. So right now, I'm not really worried about playability. I'm concerned only in putting the neck under load, really. Thank you. Oh God. There's no way that's going to go through the bloody thing. Could this be the time to try out this new Strat You haven't pulled hooks. Let's try. Let's do this Mark's way. let's try out this new.
This whole newfangled. Let's create another tool out of a set of strings.
Yeah. Let's pay the price. You can tie these into a little.
Thanks.
Knot and throw them.
I'll re-tie them up for you.
Just make them small and make them vanish.
Make those go away.
Should we do it with 9s? No. I tell you what. Why don't we do it with 10s? Let's do every set with everything with 10s. So Mark's idea was that we put these on. These are the sacrificial strings, and we cut them each time. Well, we don't cut them. We put them each time on with extra length available. So that this was really messy. That just plonked itself all over the place. Yeah, we put it on each time with some, leaving all the full length of the string on, so that we have a better chance of
restringing it later.
Restringing it, because we've always got a straight line to work with.
A straight bit at the end.
Yeah, brilliant. We think.
Well,
we think it's foolproof. Nothing could possibly go wrong. So
on your level of foolishness.
Yeah, or who the fool is.
Yeah.
So here I am. Ordinarily, I would be gritting my teeth at the waste of this brand new set of D'Addario strings, but now I feel completely happy about it because it's a.
They are D'Addario, so that you get to know which colour you're using. Oh no, these are roto sands.
Oh shit! Sorry, I'm using the wrong names. Right, I want whites. Yeah, roto sands. I thought it was only D'Addario that was coloured as well.
Yeah.
No, but it's so simple. The roto sand got my business because of the extra string.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And because I do so much stretching, it tends to be the one that breaks. The top E. When if anything's going to break in the setup, it would be the top E during the stretching process. So for me, having a spare one is really godsend.
No, D'Addario sell their strings on rolls of hundreds.
Oh yeah.
And they're not crazy expensive.
That would be a really smart thing to do.
More useful maybe if you're a shop rather than fixing. But
yeah, I do go through that.
Yeah, I looked into the Martin ones as well for acoustics like that, and you can buy them on just in boxes of.
Roll that one up and stash it next to the Gorilla Glue.
Yeah.
See, there's a.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and can you put a 10 tag on it as well?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I know what's what, because just a red string hanging around
doesn't help much.
No. You know it's an E, but you don't know what gauge it is. And here's a pen.
Thank you.
And a bit of tape. Right, so I got the strings all dangling free. I suppose I'd better put on the string trees if I'm going to do this proper. And we've got, interestingly, we've only got one of the string tree barrels. Don't know why that is. But I might find another one in the kit somewhere, but for now we'll just put it on as it comes. Okay. And Mike wanted to. What did he want to do? He wanted to set. I think he wanted to set the intonation himself on this. Just wanted the experience of doing it. So I'll do the whole action thing, and then just leave him to do the intonation, which is probably actually set okay as it is. So you probably won't have much to do. Okay. So with this new sacrificial set of strings, working with a 10, I'm going to go through. Is the blue string winder over there knocking about on the bench somewhere? Light blue. It's probably under this pile of junk. Thank you. So we're going to end up with something that I normally would hate to have.
Which is dangly ends.
This huge, great furry nest of vipers at the end. God, I don't know what to do with them.
No, just leave it there until you've done all of them, and then we'll tape them up. Full of something today.
Full of beans and ideas. Okay. It's been a busy old guitar day for a Sunday. quite nice having people dropping and picking up.
Yeah.
Okay, come on. Right, so I'm going to put the guitar under load, and then we will get the amazing banana fret leveling kit out, and I'll kind of explain to Mark in full detail how it works. So, and in fact, you can have one of my to take away with you. Ooh, I've got a spare one, so you can go and do it at home.
Can't level other people's frets for them.
Yeah. Oh no! If I tell everyone, then everyone will do it. I better lie and cheat and give misinformation. Thing is, I'm of the kind of mind that, so if everybody learned to do it, then I'll find something else to do. Yeah. You know, move on to something else. When the whole world can do this, and
yeah, then your job is done.
Yeah, do some other thing that needs doing.
That's the problem with being an educator. There's always more people to educate.
Yeah.
You never run out of willing minds.
Of course, yeah. On this video, we haven't mentioned that Mark and I have known each other since 1999, when I was lecturing at Newport School of Art and Design, I think it was called then.
Or University of Wales College, Newport.
Thank you. UWCN it was then called. And Mark joined the multimedia course as a first year student, and that was the course I was running. And yeah, I think I left just before, I left after your second year, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah.
And then we sort of, I kept ending up in the same places, you know, the same parts of the world, and eventually ended up down in the southwest.
I remember the first time I called you up for a favour because I didn't know anyone else had a car when I finished uni.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, do I phone Sam, my old lecturer? He's the only person I know with a car. Phoned him to go and help me go and pick up a car, and that was a horrible little little metro, and we drove halfway across Wales to go and look at a metro that I bought for 400 quid off of somebody. And we spent the entire drive talking each other's ears off because we hadn't seen each other for about 2 years.
Yeah, I got it. Oh wow! I remember. How weird. Blimey. Wow. Where were you? Where was I at? Oh shit.
You were living in that little tiny Welsh town. Nowhere.
Was I married and kids? And,
yeah. Not having the greatest of times.
Really?
On the way out of that, I think we were at the time.
I think I was always on the way out of it. Yeah, God, blimey.
And then you ended up, I had that metro for a little while, and then you had a...
I had a red Golf.
You had the red Golf, and then I think I had the red Golf off of you.
You did.
And, I had a blue Golf first. We found a blue Golf, the 1.4, and I drove that around for a while.
Yeah.
And then I got the...
Dark blue, gunmetal blue.
Yeah. Then I got your red one off you, which I then actually swapped for a guitar, because it needed work doing to it that I couldn't afford. Thus began the long process of finding old guitars and messing about with them, which is a cheaper pastime.
Did that come from the red YBF?
Yeah.
Was it YBF, the registration? You've been framed.
You've been framed. That was the one where it had the rotten exhaust manifold, and it was going to cost me over 300 quid to repair.
Didn't know about it, honest.
No, well, I drove it for a year after I had it off of you, so. And then, so I put an advert up in the practice rooms in Newport and said, we'll swap Golf GTI for Les Paul. And someone phoned me the afternoon that I put the sign up and came and had it off me. I never saw the kid driving it, whose guitar it was, but I did see the dad driving it.
Right.
It seemed appropriate. I think it would have been a cost.
It wasn't that guitar, was it?
No, that was a
much later.
Yeah, the one I've still got it, and it's now used as a slide guitar.
Okay, that tells us about the action.
Yeah, it's got horrible action on it. Well, it's got horrible everything on it. So that was the first guitar I modified and started working on and learning how to set up guitars with. So yeah, inadvertently you managed to set me on that path. It's all your fault.
Okay, so here we go. We are at a good stage. I've got my sacrificial strings on, and it's time to do the amazing thing with the amazing bendy tool. Oh, and these all stop falling around at the point in time. Put them underneath that thing there. Right. Okay. So, Mark, here we are at the world of curved fret leveling. A really, really elegant, simple process taught to me by the manufacturer of a tool who became such a prat that I couldn't use his tool in the end, and ended up using my own, making my own, which, given that you can make your own with a truss rod, some sticky truss rod, regular truss rod, some sticky sandpaper, self-adhesive sandpaper, 3 little brass feet the same size, and something to space your strings with, just a lump of anything. Right? Okay, now given you can do everything with these 3 things easily obtainable for virtually no money. In fact, if you've got a dead neck and you're at home for no money,
spare truss rods.
Right? So you can do the same job for no money versus paying $140 US for this thing, which is a very sexy version that does the same. Makes it a little tiny bit easier, but essentially does the same.
Looks like it kind of spreads the strings for you.
It goes underneath the strings. So, so mine does. Mine you spread the strings. That one it sits under the strings. But $140, no dollars. This is as accurate. In fact, my experience shows me this is more accurate. And the reason why, and why I use this, and not a thicker one, or any of those wide fret leveling files anymore, is because a file this thin respects the radius. Okay, it doesn't impose its flatness on the radius, whereas a wider one will. And it also allows you to tune it as you go along for different amounts of relief. So the thinner it is, the better. It's like sampling, your digital concept. More samples across the curve, the better it is. You get that. Because we used to talk about that shit all the time. Now I need my. Where's the other one?
What are you looking for?
With that?
It's here.
Thank you.
I was just
marvellous. Okay.
tidying.
So for this one, the other one I'm going to give you works at finger level. This one's a little bit stiffer, and I prefer it being a little stiffer, and so I need just to adjust it with this. But the beauty of this thing is, and this is, I know a load of people who watch this are keen to do this, so it'll be valuable. It's just going rewinding. The way I started out leveling frets was to get a radius block like one of these, the correct radius for the guitar obviously, with some sandpaper. The idea was you flatten this neck as flat as you can with the truss rod. You have a flat tool effectively with the exact radius on it, and you go, and that will then take off all the high spots. And pretty much when you're down to everything's got a bit of silver on it, you can check with your rocker, and you can keep going until everything is perfectly levelled. Right, and I've just realised that I've probably left my phone. No, it's in the hammock. That's fine. So yeah, you know it's really, if you're playing a guitar that's got uneven frets and you do this, you level them with the neck passively flattened, right? Not with strings on. Sorry, it's not a good example. You take strings off, you flatten the neck passively with the truss rod, and you use a flat file like this, and you level it. It's great, right? And you can do the fret rocker and find that there's no rocking at all, and you've got everything is flat, is level relative to everything else. Then you re-profile the frets to shape them off the correct way without taking the height down anymore. Then you polish them up with sandpaper up to a nice shine with whatever grades, and then some cream. And then you've got beautiful level frets, beautifully shiny. Then you put your strings back on, tune everything up, and the thing gradually curves a little bit, and you have to have a bit of relief in there. You don't want it totally flat. So even with a bit of relief in it, your frets are still relatively level. But the mathematical amongst you can immediately start going, hang on a minute.
There's going to be a few.
Something's not quite right, because if you levelled it flat and they were relative level, this one relative to that one now is on a curve, and it's like that. So you have definitely disturbed the relative level if you look at that middle one. But then you look at the next one, right, and that one's a bit high, you know.
I think they call it a logarithmic scale, don't they? Where it's it gets exponentially more and more out as you go along it.
Okay, so So,
wrong in that.
but what you find is if you do it that way, and I did it that way for the best part of a year or something, you will have a guitar that plays infinitely better than it did before, and you can lower your strings and yo, it's great. But there is one thing that is happening when you put the strings back on that isn't happening when the neck's flat, that has an impact on this, and it's the fact that when the strings are on, there's some compression forces acting on the neck which aren't there when it's just passively flat. So when you level passively flat and then you restring, you're reintroducing the compression, which does something to the relative levels of the frets as well as the curve, right? If you level with the strings on, you're leveling with that compression already at play, and you're leveling with the curve in place that will be there when your strings are on.
Also,
playing.
the curve isn't going to be equal all the way along because you've got different spaces between each of the frets. So it's
true.
Theoretically, it could be more compressed up at this end because you've got more frets in a smaller space than you have up here.
It could be. I don't claim to know how that mechanically that applies, but what I do know is that from an accuracy point, it's at least, let's say, arguably 10% more accurate than doing it with the passive flat method, because when you level with the strings on and the neck slightly curved, as in the proper, the guitar playing configuration, if you level like that, then when you restring and put strings back on, it comes back to that same level, and it re-establishes the levelness, relative levelness of the frets, and it's perfect, or relative, as near perfect as you're going to get. The other huge advantage of doing it is because you're doing it with the strings on, you can stop every second and go.
Yeah. Is that better? Is that getting better?
And then you stop when you've got the action you want playing, as opposed to carrying on to some notional point where you've ground either you've ground all the black marker off the frets, or you've reached a place where everything is absolutely level in the passive flattened state, which is an absolute point. You go, right, everything's perfectly level. The truth is you don't need it perfectly level. You need it level enough to play with the action you want.
Yeah.
So
and level to it in itself. Like if you, I mean, I don't know if the thickness of the strings, if the low E exerts the same amount of pressure on the neck as the high E.
I don't know.
I don't know. Something I'd need to find out.
In which case, is the compression more on this side of the neck than the other? Yeah. I've just realised I'm jumping ahead of the game slightly, but we need to do another thing. If you can pass me all of the, I need the feeler gauge and these, sorry, so they're right here. So what we're going to do is the three things I like to do before we get the fret leveling going is that, so rewind, what we're going to do is we're going to level with the strings on, neck under compression, and with the action we want dialed in. And the
first thing to do is set up the action you want.
So the chances are when you set the action you want, the neck will resist, because the basic, almost certain there'll be underlying uneven frets, partly because I put them in. But the first thing it will do is that they will resist it and you'll get choking, right? Yeah. So we want to set the action first and dictate what that's going to be for us. So I'm going to go for, if you can find my little measuring thing, string height. So, and get people online, they even come at me and tell me I'm doing, this is the wrong way around, you do this first then that. No, it doesn't matter. So first of all, I'm going to check where the action is here. It's currently just over 2 millimeters, and I take it from the last fret. So I want it lower than that, and I'm going to wind the little saddle grub screws anti-clockwise until I'm down to my chosen 1.5.
Do you want me to hold that there?
Yeah, I'm going to jump from string to string. Tilt it backwards a little bit for me. Yeah. So I'm going to go a tiny bit up on this one. So, hang on. Clockwise. They're quite old, these scrub screws. So the third one, the D, and that's quite low, so we're going to come up a bit on that one. So I'm going to go all the way across, and D again, sorry.
Measures at the 12th.
Yeah, 22nd, first, right. Okay, next one, G. And I'm going to go for the same, roughly the same height all the way across. Sometimes it works, you can put it to, a little bit lower on the high strings and the B. But I like to start by going the same all the way across. That's a high. When you're doing this little tiny tip as well is make sure that when you leave the saddle alone, both the grub screws are touching the metal and taking a bit of force, otherwise they just rattle. They look like they're doing the job, but they can be about a fraction of a millimetre off the deck, and then they'll just rattle away and buzz, which is so annoying.
Oh, talking of buzzing, my Sigma acoustic that I adore, I spent ages thinking like I had fret buzz on it,
Yeah,
and it turns out, well no, it wasn't even the bridge, it was the battery compartment for the pickup in it. I put a bit of foam in there and it stops buzzing. It's like, oh, it took me ages to find that.
And then if you're not careful, you end up grinding the entire fingerboard off.
Yeah, I didn't even start doing anything on the fingerboard. It was just lots of buzz.
Now I'm just going to go back and go roughly to pitch. Now musically it doesn't matter that we're at pitch. It matters that we're keeping it under tension. Yeah. Okay, so let's say for now that's the action I want. So 1.5 millimeters all the way across at the bridge. The next thing I'm going to check is the relief. So I often, you can probably see me putting this stand here under the central point, sort of trying to neutralise the bend as much as possible. Yeah, it's taking some load from there, but it's also bending that side. Put it there, and it's going to sag a little bit. Yeah. Some people get really crappy about this too. They go, you can only do every job in this position, right? The truth is, you can do the job in whichever position you want. You can do it in outer space if you want, providing you're intelligent. You know what the effects of gravity are, right? Yeah. So when I do, people go, you can't do intonation there. Okay, when you do intonation there, right? All it means is in that position, I tune it to E, right? It's still E. The string length is still the same, right? It's not going to be shorter or longer when I go like this, right? Yep. Okay, and it's still, what will happen is the note will change. We know that because gravity is pulling backwards there and gravity is not pulling back. So as long as you know that the note changes and that the gap will open up this way and it will close down that way because of the way that the neck's pulling back, you know that if I go for an action of 0.3 over here on its back, I know it's going to be slightly over 0.3 when I go like that. I just need to know that.
So little over at 0.3 that
it's just going to be notional.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to go, oh, it's slightly more than 0.3. He's lying. He said 0.3 and it's 0.3005. You know, yeah. So what? The point being is, I know that any gap that I cut there on its back is going to be increased slightly. I can even tell you roughly how much it's going to be. So what? Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, what it does matter is I'm telling you that when I say a 0.3 makes a really light playing action, what I really mean is around about 0.3, and in truth it's probably 0.32679 recurring. But the point is, it's not 5 or 7 or 1 millimetre, right? So it's nothing to get hung up about, but people do. It is always about being intelligent and knowing what you're...
I'm not sure which part of the world, or which area of the world, or which job you do, the way you actually do get to work in absolutes. There must be...
Your bedroom.
Yeah. I didn't mean just with guitars, I mean with anything. Like,
no, that's what I mean. The only people are bedroom warriors and internet bedroom heroes.
Oh, you've got one of those?
Yeah, it's a bit crap. I've got some better ones indoors. But anyway, to check the relief, right, capo the first fret and then hold down the last fret, and you're looking to see, is there a gap? And could you do it 7th or 8th, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8, that's halfway. If you want to be precise, you could measure it, and it's about halfway. And you're looking for what the gap is there, and I can tell you that is about 0.2 of a millimetre, and if you want to get the feeler gauge out and be pissy, you can. But the question is that enough to make the guitar play? Right? And it's a little bit, not that much. I've got 10s on here, so just putting quite a load on it. I'm going to start with saying that's enough. Right? First of all, it's not convex, right? So it's not hitting the strings already. It's also not flat. There is some relief, you can see that. And you'll see it when we dial it in on the truss rod. Right? And it's some relief. Yeah. And you can guess and go, is it a millimetre? Well, I'll put a millimetre thing under there. No, it's less than a millimetre. You know, it's about 0.1, 0.2. That's probably what you want.
Yeah.
If it's not enough, you'll dial some more in a bit later and see how it changes. Better that you see how it changes for yourself than you stick to some arbitrary number and never actually know what difference it makes.
Yeah.
Right, so has it got some relief? Yes, it clearly has. Great, let's move on. All right, next bit is the third part of the equation, which is the slots here, and they're really high. I can tell you that's about a millimetre, right? And we're going to take it down. Now, I've got so many of these damn things now, I'm going to build myself a custom set for this.
For 10s.
And the reason I do it is 10s end up binding. If you use a 10 set on 10s, you buy a 9 set for 9s, they bind. And you get, right, why? What's the point if they're never going to actually bloody work? So I go 3 or so above. So I get my entire kit out and you go, number 10, it's only 3,000th, right? I go, 13, I want a bit of room.
Yeah.
The truth is, if you buy a new nut and you put a 13 in that first slot, it'll even rattle.
Yeah.
Because of course these guys make this for the biggest possible gauge string, not the smallest. Otherwise every guitar would bind up from the scratch. So the factory goes, what's the biggest string? It's 13, make it for 13. You know, and you put a 9 in there and the aficionados go, oh, you put a 9 in there, it will spoil the tone, it will rattle. No, it won't. A 9, 6 and 13, because all the guitars are built for the biggest gauge of strings. Anyway, so I'm going to cut it for a 10, which is a 13 in my world. A 13, which I'm going to use a 16, why not? Sounds about right. A 17 should be about a 20. Now, this is where I probably haven't got such a thing. There's always one that I haven't quite got.
Have you got 19? Or?
I probably haven't got that. 13, 24, that's a bit extreme. Still it would work. 28, 17, I don't want to go the same, that's the truth. I'll go a bit over, I'll go 24. Is it 24? Yeah, what the hell. Then it's 26, so I'll go 30-ish. There's a 26 in there, wouldn't you just know? Is there a 28? I've got 32, possible. 26 to 32. Or 26, let's go 28, keep it close-ish. We've got a 36 to go 38 to 40. There's a 36, we don't want that. 2 36s, what a bummer. 48 is the biggest one we got. So I want a 38 to a 42. Oh, 42 will do.
48 you've already got up.
48, which I've got. So I got myself a bigger than I need set. And I bet you will still run the chance of getting some pinching. Which kind of goes to show this thing about if you were silly enough to buy the exact set to match every gauge, you're just making somebody a fortune. You know, you could pretty much stick to a set like that and get everything covered. Okay, so why do I adjust these to a different height? Because anything above 0.5, in my experience over the first fret, results in the fretted strings around here going sharp.
Yeah. Because you're introducing a bend in the string. Yeah,
you're bending right down to meet it, right? Because the slot isn't deep enough. Most guitars come with it too high, and not most manufacturers I've seen don't pay attention to it, or no shops don't do it. So, obviously I put this nut in myself, so no old Squier would say, well, we don't do it like that. I've put this in, so I've introduced a new height. But in principle, most guitars don't come with the slot heights or the first fret action set right. There's two reasons you do it. One is because anything above 0.5, and believe me, it doesn't have to be much above 0.5. As soon as you go away, 0.6, 0.7, the amount of detuning you get is huge.
Yeah.
And it comes to the point where you play an open chord and it never will sound good, because these 3 strings are in tune and those 3 strings are in tune with each other, but they're all sharp, and those are true.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like a mess. And people blame themselves and think they can't get the guitar in tune. They buy new tuners, they buy a new guitar, they lock off the tremolo, all manner of stuff. But it's down to
string height
0.3 millimeters too high on the first fret. The second reason you do it is that same tiny adjustment. Let's say from, this is about 1, out of fun, what the hell is this? I'd say it's about 1.2 or something. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because we're not going to work to that. A really high action down here also makes it incredibly tiring to play.
Yeah.
And by the time you've reduced it to a standard 0.3 all the way across, it feels light, feather-like, and you can play chords without all the way down here without any intonation distortion and without any effort. And it's until you've got a guitar like that you don't realise how tiring your other guitar is.
Yeah. How much effort you're actually putting on,
it's actually
strain on your thumb muscles.
It's much more tiring down here than it is for, believe it or not, high action up here. But it's this we always remember from school. You know, it's like, oh, it had a cheese, egg slicer action. It's down here that's the thing that I think puts people off. So what I do is I drop off the first two, which I know changes the force on the neck, yes, but it's close enough for me to work on these things to get the action right. So I go for my first one and I set my feeler gauge to 0.3 and I look at the gap, see the shadow, it's like the Groundhog Day, see the shadow of the string on the feeler gauge, see the fresh air, can you see it?
Yeah.
Hear the note, so you know there's loads of gap, right? So shove him out of the way, get my string of D working outwards.
So you're working outwards from the middle.
Yeah, get my D thingy out and just do a little bit of slicing away. Now this is bone, so it should perform dependably. Drop it back in, still rings, take it a bit more out. So it really is a boring and slow process of cutting away.
One thing that you're doing is keeping the angle of the file towards the headstock so that you create a break point for the string rather than a flat surface for it to sit on.
If it comes off the back, say it was the opposite way around and the string launched off the very back of the fret, so the back was highest and the front sloped away, then that would be about 4mm or 3mm
of extra
string length, which would screw up your intonation. You could probably achieve
it at the other end, but also it means that you've got space, there's something for the string to rattle in. Right, so if it's breaking at the front of the nut, that's what you want rather than at the back of the nut. Right,
so that's why I'm leaning backwards. The other thing about this is you got to the payoff of doing this is so great that first of all I recommend you do it, right? And if you do it, you also have to accept that you're going to mess up the nut once in a long while. Right? You may overcut the nut slots, or you may just do it so badly you just want to start again. Replacing that for £5 or £1 if you buy it from China and you have to wait and buy a stock in advance. Replacing that for even a £5 is a tiny price to pay for the massive playability improvement you get.
Along with the lesson of
messing it up and not doing it again.
I don't need to do it. I don't need to go at it quite like a bull in the china shop.
Yeah, which I often do. So you can still see a gap. It's getting closer. And I'm going to have the courage
more careful and more careful.
Yeah, just to cut that as clean and smooth as possible. And if I go over, I have a get out of jail card, and it's called Bone Dust and Super Glue.
That sounds like a song. Sounds like a blues song.
Some people use bicarbonate of soda and super glue.
It would seem to make more sense to use the stuff that it was made out of.
Yeah, if it is bone, sometimes it's plastic as well. But so that's, to me, that's on, right? And you see how low that is?
Yeah,
It's hardly anything. If you think that's low, and if you have any doubt, you the viewer have any doubt that that will play, go and capo your guitar somewhere, and just go and look out of interest go and see what the actual clearance is on the new first fret when you've capoed your guitar. It's even smaller than I've just ended up with. It's probably about 0.1 of a millimetre, and I've set a conservative 0.3. Right, I could go down 0.1 if I want, but it feels almost
too slick,
too weird. Right? But when you play the capo on, it actually tends to feel nice. You know, most people love putting the capo on because it's suddenly easier to play. There's a reason why. Okay, so that's that one done. I want to make sure it's in pitch roughly, because I'm going to now put the A in and tune the A to pitch. And the reason I'm tuning to pitch, even though it's harder to move the strings, is it's too easy to, if you don't put enough tension on, you can very easily get the string to sit near the top of the slot, and you keep cutting away,
and it's not
going down, and then when you put it under proper tuning tension, it suddenly goes bang, and suddenly you're on the fret. Right.
Or you end up with some dust under there, and it's not pushing in because of the dust.
And then you cut further than you need to. Right, and that means repair time. And here we go. And I had to do repair yesterday on Kirsty's guitar because I cut it. The reason why the nuts was tusk, and it's almost a spongy plastic compared to bone. And bone I love to work because you can depend on it.
Dense.
That's what you want,
isn't it?
But that other stuff catches me out many more times than ever with bone, so I'd much rather.
You're going to enjoy doing the graphite nut that I've got over there.
Graphite's quite brittle too.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a big gap and it's ringing.
You can drive a bus under that.
Yeah. So get the correct one out, and now these are, remember, these are oversized for the gauge of string, so I should just be able to saw away and not worry about rocking from side to side to widen the gap. And you know, it tends to be just on you go. I have shown in other videos that you can use, you don't have to pay 50, look at neighbour wall, 55 quid for your set of files. You can use one of those diamond V-shaped files from the little cheap diamond coated jeweler sets. You end up with slightly V-shaped slots, but if you actually, once you've done the same technique, if you then remove the top material above the V slot till there's only a little bit showing, the string will still sit in there and you won't even see that it's a V slot, right? And it'll cost you 6 quid for a set, of which that's a sixth or an eighth, you know, 80 pence, 55 for a set of these. So, you know, you don't feel you have to spend loads to try it out. And even if you're left with V-shaped slots, some aficionados get really pissy about it and they think they're ugly and they think you're a complete idiot. If they do the job and you've got a guitar...
If it's a V, the string is still going to sit at the bottom of the V.
Technically, there's even less friction because it's only touching 2 points.
Yeah.
But who knows? But the point is, it's totally workable, and if that's all you've got to hand, use that. Don't be put off by people's judgment of the aesthetic. Go and do it and experience the massive difference pound for pound that it makes to the playability of a guitar. That's what it's about.
And just remember to go slow and steady, that's all. Don't gouge massive chunks of nut out.
The V5 is actually easier to use even than these because it's cutting from a point. This is trying to fit in a slot and cut down. That thing just...
makes its own slot as it goes.
You know, this one, the deeper you go, the more this one snatches and catches. So and it's when it does you start to run the risk of overcutting it. So you just keep on going until you've got the thing just starting to buzz on the fret. Sorry, not on the fret, on the feeler gauge. And I can still see there's a gap. And you just do it a tiny bit at a time. And the slower, you know, more patient you are, the better result you'll get. We're almost there. That one, I mean, they're both almost exactly the same. It's probably a tiny bit more under this A. So one more whiff of this and I say we're done. Yeah, that's good. Gauging that to be good, and then we just keep it roughly in pitch. Doesn't really matter about the musical tone, it's just getting the tension right. Yeah. So again, always check first. Look at that. Huge gap. Now this one is a bit difficult to move, but you can do it. Still, if you can move it, keep it under tension rather than try and slack off, because it's much better that you go with the full tension and avoid the false cut than you make it easy for yourself and then make a mistake. So it's tons to go. The end one here is a little bit, can be misleading because the edge rolls off a bit, and you can sort of fool yourself that you've got it down to the level. In fact, there's loads more height. So try and get, when you're testing it, try and get your feeler gauge in roughly straight, like as if it's across the rest of the frets. Yeah. The fret. And if it still plays, you've got more to go. More. So this is, as you can see, this is a slow process. And then you think, well, okay, when it's taken an hour or something to get this part of the setup done, you think, oh, maybe that's why the shop doesn't do it. Yeah. Maybe that's why the factory doesn't do it.
Or maybe that's why luthiers and guitar techs charge so much for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing quick about this process if you're going to get it right. And
one thing I would say as well, when you're pulling the string out of there, what Sam's doing is making sure that he lifts the string clear of the little bit of bone that's on the edge. Yeah. Because it's all too easy to snap the bone by pulling the string to the side instead of lifting it out of the slot.
You find that tends to be a real problem with things like that arch top I've got endorsed, where the strings are really powerfully splayed to go from a narrow neck, a narrow nut out to a wide tuners, and the sideways force on that is
pulling
huge.
sideways anyway, but these are a lot more horizontal.
Yeah, that's hardly any sideways pressure at all, which is a good thing about the Strat.
It's not constantly weakening it anyway.
Okay, so I've done my bottom 3. Now I'm going to switch to the top 3, and I start from the outside in. Ow. Slack off this one, slack off the B, drop it off the side, and then start with the G, and we're working through those 3. And again, same gap, 0.3, lift it out of the way. This one will sit out in the B slot, so it's quite compliant. Okay. And we just keep on going. And you know, people say, well, how much angle backwards? And you get, if you do it a lot, you just get used to it. The only thing to remember is if you do a lot of that angle and then you change the angle to that, you'll suddenly wear down
a finer point much lower
very quickly, and suddenly you'll be on the fret. So if you change the angle, you will cut quicker. If you're doing it at one angle and then you cut across that angle, suddenly you'll drop the height very quickly.
I guess one way to look is to look at the angle of the break point, the natural break point, like where the strings sit on the tuning pegs. You want the string to run along that, or have the angle be slightly lower than that, so that it's that it has a break point rather than a break area.
Yeah, you don't want it to be sitting flat across the material. So we're almost there. String's still playing, but it's just beginning to buzz. So a couple more sort of pushes of the file through there. There we are. That's on. Right on the money. Okay, so again, tune it just to keep everything under tension so that we're working with everything as close to pitch as possible. Now, like I said before, this gap, which is very nice now, will, when I fret level this in a minute, will reduce. Oh, sorry, increase a little bit. But it's going to be a very small amount, and it's not going to change the basic nice low feeling, easy feeling. It's not going to suddenly change it, make it feel difficult.
Is your camera pointing down enough?
Yeah, maybe pointing. It's massively wide angle.
Oh, alright, cool, I didn't realise. I'm a camera novice.
Well, I had it, after a while I tried it on a narrower field of vision, and some people preferred it that way, and it made some people feel less ill. And you know, some people kind of were a bit unsettled by the bends, you know, the neck looks bent here. But I found I was having to move it too much, which probably increased people's motion sickness even more. Just constantly. So I just went back to the wide angle, because to be honest, I need to forget it as much as possible. I need to get on and do the job. You know, it's the same with the why don't I edit, and most people who follow my stuff on YouTube know why I don't edit it. I mean, the simple...
Is it just because you hate editing?
No, the simple... Well, it's not... I actually used to like it a lot, but the simple reason is there's no... I mean, the hard-nosed reason, there's no benefit to me from editing it. And it would just cost me time. And then the other reason is it's not meant as entertainment. It's meant. It was always meant for people who might be buying a guitar to check the work that was done. And you know, if they were interested in buying the guitar, they'd also be quite interested in jumping around and seeing the work. So there were, you know, from my perspective, there's no benefit at all. And actually, it's truth. It does what it was intended to do.
Which is to like
show what's going on.
Show the process.
So yeah, there's no incentive or benefit to me, and you know, with all respect, I'm happy to give it away, but I never set out to make it to please somebody else. You know, so when people go, oh, couldn't you have made it shorter? It's like, well, I wasn't making it for you. No offence, you know.
That's why it's got the fast forward button. You can always speed up the video playtime if you want. Joy of YouTube.
Nearly got caught out with that one.
Yeah.
That wasn't a pitch. Yeah, so it's, you know, I never meant to sound rude, but the truth is it wasn't made as entertainment for a passing viewer. It was made for a purpose, and if it happens to be useful for somebody, that's great. But I'm not doing it because I want people's likes, or you know.
You're doing it as logging the process.
Well, you remember I used to do a lot of podcasting.
Yeah.
Then there was a kind of term they used to use in podcasting. It was called ease casting, which was a principle that you just go, you capture what's happening rather than start out to make a production.
Yeah.
You know, like radio goes and scripts things and starts off, and you know, you set up all the mics and you have everyone come in. Ease casting is whenever something's making a noise, you go and capture it, and you do as little editing as possible, because it's not radio, it's podcasting. And so I still very much follow that kind of principle. The other thing about editing is, honestly, it's too tempting to get stuck in your own ego. You know, if you go and edit something, if I do this,
you want to make yourself look cool.
If I have a principle that I just show whatever happens, right, and whatever I look like with my double chins and my bald head, you know, I'm just myself, and I forget that very quickly. You don't get up your own backside, you know. But if you're constantly editing and going, oh, how do I look, or I better take that out because I made a mistake, or I look stupid, or whatever, you probably spend more time
doing that than concentrating on the guitar.
Okay, speaking of which, have a feel of that nice low action, easy action on that end there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just easy to play.
Yeah.
You've got loads of you never get worn out playing that. So you could just play now and go. The basic parts of the setup are all there.
Yeah.
Except
that's nice.
We're now going to just clean up the frets with a tiny bit of precision fret leveling. Now remember I said I'd already done a basic fret leveling, and the issue for me here is we've got to do a little bit because we've got some marks to remove down here, but what we're really bothered about is, are there any notes that aren't playing well? Definitely, right? So let's make sure that's not hitting a pickup. Okay, so there are some issues here to take care of. Only on that one, only on that string, funnily enough. I mean, a few little zizzes here and there. So, just for fun, let's say that fret there, let's mark it, because this is what's really nice about being able to come back. What's nice about being able to come back with when you're doing it this method of the strings on, is that somebody who's watching this can see that right now this lovely low 1.5mm action is not currently happy playing with these frets, and the viewer will then be able to see in a few minutes time, we'll come back and play it and all these will play. And that's proof of the pudding. It's that you can't get a more obvious. If you just say, oh, they're level because they've all been ground down by the file. You don't really know what that means. It's just this notion that they're level. It's about,
seeing a problem,
can what I do
fix it,
next free up that note? Because that's what we want. So what we do is we balance the guitar in sort of neutral point on its neck like that, and this is the great fun part. We start with our thing. What do you call it? File. Our banana, named in honour of the katana. I call mine the banana. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with these little feet, and I'm going to put them in between the E and the B. This mapping, this first mapping, is going to do for both the E string track and the B string track, because the reason why is I can't really balance it there and measure the outside one. So we're going to make this one do for the first two, then we're going to recalibrate for the G and then recalibrate for the D, and then the A calibration will do for the A and the E. Okay. So the idea is I'm going to sort of try and divide up my fingerboard. Now this banana tool is not long enough to cover the whole fingerboard. I have got a bass guitar one which I'm not comfortable using. It does the whole thing, but I'm still more comfortable with this one. It just means we we go backwards and forwards and roll over some frets, right? So I want to put this equidistant apart, so I'm just seeing, look at that, good guess. And once I've got it, and save doing it every 5 minutes, and actually I don't need, I've already got tape on that, I'm going to go, that's where my first one goes, that's where my second one goes, and that's where my third one goes. So each time I put them back on, I won't have to do all that
Which
stuff.
fret did I put them on?
Now here's the good bit. When you've got them spaced apart, you lay down your doofer, right, with the first, the left side first, and it touches on that. Now these things are all the same height. So if you think about the physics behind it, it's beautiful that to map a curve you only need those 3 points. It's crazy, but you can. If it's a consistent curve, you only need 3. Between 2 points you can't map it, because that's a straight line.
It can be anywhere, yeah.
It just needs these 3, and then providing the bar curves consistently across its length, you will either curve it to meet the 3rd point, or you won't, in which case it won't be curved enough. So we place it on here first, and then we lay it down onto the other 2. And then what you're doing is you're looking, now you can see, is that hitting the middle one or missing it?
It's very close to it.
But it's missing, because you can see it's not moving it.
Yeah.
The other thing too is when it's a double thing, it's doing by seeing, but it's also doing by feeling. There's a feel when it hits the right one first. When it hits the middle one first, it goes da-dunk.
Yeah.
Because it hits there and then bends forward and hits there. So you just get to know it once you've done it a few times. So straight away I go, that tells me that this bar is currently straighter than that neck. Okay, so I want to bend the bar, and guess what? It's a truss rod.
Yeah.
Twist the truss rod. Replaces it. Still.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this truss rod is a bit stiffer than the one I'm going to give you, so this one requires a little turn, microscopic amounts. Right?
Yeah.
Put it down in the same place, and believe it or not, still missing it.
Too high, yeah.
Got to make sure it's in the same line, but they are definitely still missing it. Turn a tiny bit more.
Oh,
it's moving it now.
Yeah.
And it's not hitting the middle first and clicking a second down there.
Yeah.
It's pretty much on. Ooh, okay, now I call that calibrated.
Yep.
So I drop off the E, because I'm freeing up that space.
Yeah.
I space out the E and the B down this end wherever I want, because I've cleared that track. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I get you.
Got me ready curved thing, which I stay away from that end.
Yeah.
And I place
it. Already got some.
So yeah, it's got some sticky.
Yeah.
220 grit on this in this case, right?
Yeah.
You can use anything from 400 up to what 220. The more aggressive, the more confident you've got to be. The lighter, the more you've got to use it.
You got to do, yeah.
But you know, start off with light if you're doing it for the first time. So all I'm doing now is I'm just going to hold it roughly. This is just guiding it, and I'm going to use
just
gravity.
Move it up and down.
Yeah.
Don't put any weight on it.
Right now I don't. You will get a feel later on where you do put a bit of weight in.
Yeah.
Certain areas you're going to want to focus on and whatever. But remember I'm covering the outside of the E track, and the space towards the B track.
Yeah.
That's what I call them. And so you just do a little bit and let it run backwards and forwards. You can see it's just a bit shorter than all the frets together. So I'm just making sure that it covers those ends and this end a bit. Just making. Sometimes it doesn't quite hit that one. Sometimes it does, right?
I can see that it'd be harder with using the longer one, because you
Yeah.
have to worry about the nut as well. You don't want to be bashing into the nut all the time, and that gives you more delicacy almost.
So looking at this now, this is where your diagnostics come in, right? So you take a stop, always take a stop and have a look. What we've got, this is a bit, I've knocked up a bit because some of this is really worn off, but you can see quite clearly I'm cutting a bit there, clearly cutting that one away, hardly any there, clearly cutting that one, not much there, not much there, not much there, a bit there, not much, some there, some there, some there, not much, some there, not much, tiny bit, nothing.
Yeah.
The first thing it tells you is if you're cutting in all 3 places, it means you've got the curve right.
Yeah.
If it was just cutting at the ends, chances are I would immediately, you'd be too flat.
Yeah.
Right? The thing's curved, but you're just
going
across the edge. So immediately, if I was only cutting there, I'd recalibrate. But because I'm cutting in 3 recognisable places, I'm going to carry on. But I don't just carry on because we're not doing it arbitrarily. Remember, we're aiming at making all these notes play.
Yeah.
Okay, and
so you can pick it up and.
So what this should tell you, look at that.
Yeah. What it's cut off of there might be
exactly.
Where it was
so that's what
before.
you'd expect to see. Where there was a problem, you expect to see the solution being a little bit there. Now that wasn't playing before.
Yeah, and that's playing a lot better than it was before, isn't it?
So that's how we do it.
Yeah.
And we literally are able to stop at the point at which we freed up those notes. Now when you do the E, what you can't tell until you've done the rest is, will the E bend?
Yeah.
Right, because sometimes you can get the E freed up and then you bend it.
You push it up into the A zone.
And it squelches off, right.
The B zone.
And you might have to do more work here to free up the bends you want to do there. But usually, once you've got this free, everything else kind of goes in line. what I'll do after this is I'll just draw more black back onto these frets, because it's much
It's been sort of wiped off from where I've been stringing it and stuff.
It's much better to have it really coloured dark so you can see. Now I am putting a little bit of downward pressure, but not a lot. And you don't have to. You can just leave gravity to do its thing.
Don't forget to run it over the end one as well.
Yeah, you can leave gravity to do its thing most of the time, particularly if you're new to it and you want to take it slowly. With the experience, you tend to know how to kind of push it in a little bit, and if you do push it in, you will deform the bar a little bit.
Yeah.
But you need to know. If you know what you're doing, you can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just feeling it as you go, practicing, thinking.
That's exactly it. You develop a feel for it.
Yeah, thinking as you go and checking as you go.
And nobody can tell you what that feel is or isn't, and you'll get it, and you'll know how to, and you might handle it with greater artistry than me, because you've got a better feel for it. Still a little bit more. So we're looking at these frets here that are slightly problematic.
It doesn't seem to be taking much off of those middle ones.
No, and if you're concerned, go back. Replace your what sits. Now, I do remember that when I reached that point where it was hitting all three, I felt it was still quite heavy on that end, right? And it could have curved even more, possibly. Let's try it again. Okay, now I can see it's moving the middle one, right? So that's the first of the criteria. But when I do my bang down test, both my hearing and my senses tell me the main impact is here.
Yeah, it's just touching that middle bit there. It's not maybe touching it enough.
And the reason why I might not be getting this taken out is because, or it's taking a long time, is because I could do with a tiny bit more.
You could get like an extra half a degree or whatever it would be measured in.
Microfarad, no really. now this, I can feel now, this is just beginning to bang down in the middle first, but let's go with that. Oh, that shouldn't have happened. These three little brass feet, by the way, I found just by looking at stud. These are dome nuts. Dome bolt nuts or something. And I just guessed the size, and all they really have to be is big enough to stand comfortably above the string.
And between.
Yeah, and my first grab worked out. So I've used the same three ever since.
Also, weirdly, because they've got a dome on the top, they come to a point. Right, so you have a precision point.
The best
if you had a
point
flat
you could come to,
yeah. Was that a happy accident?
Probably was. I mean, I didn't think about it too.
So you were just trying to raise.
I was just trying to find three things exactly the same, and I. You might be able to see from here, but I did buy a few options. I'll give you. I may have some more of these, but I may have. You could probably have these. It might just be a little bit wide, but I had some different kinds. Those, and in fact, these are probably better for you. Same thing. They're a bit flatter on top, but they probably stand just as easily, and they go under the string as well. So they would be good for your thing. These are the ones that came with the katana, and again using the principle of the dome, and they sort of stand, I don't know, it's supposed to stand that way, but the dome bit happens to be the same sort of principle. Okay, so I'm going to stop in a second when I think I've got the right amount of freed up space.
Has it been cutting a little more on those?
Yeah, it feels like it has. And then I'm going to redraw some marker pen so we can have a better look at the next track. Nearly.
Now, it is such a minute process. You're trying to get it so it's just clean, like not well. Let's just file loads off.
No, I'm going. That's exactly right. I'm taking as little as I can away to achieve what I want, rather than just go. I could go at it with a sort of hammer to crack a nail type of thing, but I don't want to do that. I want to take as little of the fret material off to achieve the action I want. And don't forget, this is a low action for a budget guitar. This is, I'm going to double check it again in a minute, but I think for on the treble side, it's probably just under 1.5 millimeters. Or it's 1.2 millimeters. I mean, it's very small and very low down here. It's getting there. Now if we couldn't get there, and this is always a judgment call, if we couldn't get there and we felt that we were taking too much of this metal off, then I would raise this a tiny fraction, right? Because we've got leeway there. It would still be a nice playable action.
Pull it up 0.1 of a mil,
and it would take it away. I'm going to give it one more go on this setting, and then I will then raise it or move on. And don't forget, you'll also take some tiny amount of that material off in the sanding process too. Not a huge amount, but you know, could be sometimes just enough to clear the buzzing. But I'd rather, I tend to know when that's the case, and I tend to be quite confident when I just hit it and go, right, that will be cleared up in the sanding. I'm not so sure about this one here. It feels like it might need the action raising fraction.
I mean, it's definitely getting there, isn't it? But
yeah. Now, where did the smallest? Oh, there it is. So, you know, let's see what the tiniest. Let's say a quarter turn clockwise. Now it changes the pitch.
It's got rid of one of the tokes, isn't it?
This bit here. I'm gonna do it one more time and concentrate on that little point physically. Oh, we had two.
Yeah. And one of them sounds like it's mostly cleared off. Oh.
Nearly there.
Yeah.
Well, I always get nervous because I'm very reluctant to take metal off, so I tend to wimp out sooner than rather than stay the course. Perhaps I should just have the courage to stick it out and also go right to the edge as well. Those appear to be very low compared to the other ones, that's for sure. These ones in the middle, hardly cutting at all. It's getting there. I'll do one more. I was almost there.
I was thinking about the light grit of sandpaper. Plus, it's not new sandpaper.
No, it's very old.
You're not taking very much off each time.
The clearances are minuscule.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you're down to an action of 1.2, 1 to 1.2 millimeters, something like that. The amount that the string clears that fret, the first, whichever is the fret after the one.
Even hairs are thicker.
It is, honestly. It's a tiny amount. So the fact that it plays at all is sometimes quite remarkable. But it is tiny. See, that one's pretty much all right now. Okay, I'm going to just recalibrate one more time just to be sure of this. It's definitely hitting the middle a little bit first now. Let's take a tiny fraction off. Again, it's just so small an amount each time. So look, and it's almost gone the other way. The nearest of turns, it's so small an amount that it's hardly anything. You can't even really feel how much it is or isn't turning. It's almost nothing. But that's how sensitive it is. Alright, I'm going to give this one more go like this, and then if it doesn't play this time, I'll consider raising it to 1.5, which is again a fairly respectable action in my book. I like to start as low as I can to challenge the thing.
Yeah.
See what we can achieve. I'm putting quite a bit more force down in this middle section anyway, so I want to get this relative levelness between these things. Almost there.
Yeah.
One more time. Go on. Why not?
See a sixth one more time. Right?
Yeah, I know, but it's just, it's like I think it's like gambling or something. You're so much almost there. Oh, go on.
It's nothing like gambling.
Okay, good. I don't gamble, so
I don't gamble either.
I'm going on
I've watched a lot of other people do it.
That's what I imagine gambling's like. When people go, oh, go back, I'm going to win it this time. It's going to get it this time.
People have that imaginary lucky streak, forgetting that chance is the same every single time.
That's true.
Chance doesn't pile up.
Stop there for now. Move on. Change of scenery. Right, we're going to use the same calibration for the next chunk, and then we'll recalibrate on the next line. So just again back on there. Now I'm going to just do it for a bit and then check the playability. I don't want to automatically grind away for hours, you know, just because we can.
What you're also doing there is matching that gradient in with the one next to it, aren't you?
Yeah, because we've done quite a lot of work on that first bit. But again, if it plays nicely across all of these now, we don't want to stay too long on it.
Yeah.
Which it does.
Yeah.
Right, and then we recalibrate for the G. So
I think it's probably likely that you'll have high points at the ends of the frets anyway. They're much more likely to be high than the middle, I would imagine.
Yeah, they tend to be. Yeah, they tend to stick out, and that they haven't seated properly.
Yeah, or they've seated properly, but just the way that the metal is, that when you've curved it, the springiness of the metal is always sort of pushing the other way.
The other thing about it is as well is when you've cut those little tangs, and if you're doing a thing, the tang often
it will push the
flares the edge upwards.
Yeah, I didn't like that when I was doing it before, so that's why I ended up grinding it with the Dremel. It took a really long time, but meant that I didn't have to deal with the frets being pushed up at the end like the little ski slopes.
Okay, so I've got a bit more curvature on that now. So that's the nice thing about this method that you can't do with another method, is that we can map that relief as you come across. There's a bit more curve in this G slot now. I said I was going to paint the frets again, but I don't think I'm going to bother because I'm just getting on with
it. Did you make your little neck stand?
No, I bought that from somewhere. I mean, none of these things would be too hard to make. I kind of just wanted to get on, you know. So
yeah, I've got like some old pillows that I end up using. My setup is way less professional than yours, but I've done way less guitars than you. So.
Okay, quick test. I mean, I always said you don't care about the unevenness of the frets underneath this action.
Yeah. Well, frets are there to do a job, not
A tiny bit more. Getting really precise here and finicky, but.
Well, there was one in the middle that sounded like it needed just a little bit more.
It can be, that's the thing, you know, once you're there, you can get it as right as you want, or you can back off early if you want to. I don't know whether these frets in the middle were particularly well pressed in or something, but they seem to be just a fraction lower set than everything. tiny bit at the very end there.
Yeah.
You see how it's building up this sort of gungy dust?
Yeah, yeah.
It gets a pretty messy affair. Okay, I'm going to focus a little bit on the end here, where the obstruction was. Doesn't mean I'm not doing that. I'm just. It's funny. It's almost like if you look at that end, and it's still doing that end, but I'm just sort of. I'm looking at this more because I know it's got to even this out a little bit. I'm spreading it all the way across that patch as well, because I don't want it to be stepped particularly. Yeah. So you can see how much time this takes, but the payoff will be a beautifully smooth. Done.
Yep.
Move on. Now for the D, recalibrate to the mark, which is so much easier. No pun intended. Okay, now that's pretty much spot on still. Yeah. I've got a little gouge on the fret down here on this. It's not on the D, it's like it's actually between the D and the A that I want to try and get out. I mean, it's not critical in that it's not going to really interfere with playing right up there, but it's something I noticed when it was a result of that stupid edging block skipping across the surface.
Yeah, I know the edges I just used this, like, I got the same file as this.
Yeah.
I just did that. Yeah. I know roughly what 45 degrees is.
Yeah, I've done it with that before. It's quite satisfying. Just in fact, when we've got yours there, once we clipped it off, I'll probably take the bulk of it off just like that to begin with, before I do the sideways file, because it's might as well take the the most of the material off.
Like the I like the shark's face on your file.
Thomas put it on there. It frightened him. It was so he felt it was just way too mean. Well, it is, no offence to Crimson Ben.
It's a harsh tool, but
it's unforgiving.
Yeah. You're either using it or you're not.
Yeah, there's not a lot of subtlety. It does what it says.
But it's a good file.
It does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the question is, where are we? I think we're on still. Okay, well this is going to be the same for the next two from now to the end. And this is where the little dent is down this end. You see it show up as some little black chips, basically.
Yeah.
So it's interesting again. You remember I said about I was questioning whether there was really any efficacy in doing that basic first level in a flat mode.
All you do is you take the same problems and push them further down.
I think that's what I do. Yeah, you're right. And I think that's I think I'm seeing the amount of work I'm doing on these even after I've done that level. It hasn't ever shown me that's worth doing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah, see how it goes.
Yeah, well, I'm on yours.
Yeah, we'll just go straight to using this and see how that goes. Because that's a definite. We're going to have definite weirdness on that. So.
In fact, I'm going to put some new paper on for yours. I'm just going to work a little bit on this chip down here.
Something I noticed you don't do is run tape down the side of your neck.
Yeah, for these bits.
Yeah, the first thing I do if I'm taping up a neck for polishing or anything is run tape down the sides and then put tape round or over the top, because then you can pull up one side and it's really satisfying. You just go like that and it pulls all of the tape up. I'm all for making it more satisfying. Oh.
Who's going to be playing notes up there? Come on.
That's the end of the neck. You never know. Steve might pop round.
I know. And for the sake of perfection, let's just take care of it.
You're going to do a job properly. Yeah. Not that you need telling that.
Yeah, that I've tried that taping thing, and sometimes it just once I tried it, it just didn't seem to work. But
you put tape all the way around anyway, so
yeah,
I tend to just tape over the top. It's weird, the different, like just those little tiny differences. Oh,
smack. It's all right. Everything's
that's
fine.
what scratch plates are for.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Last one. Dunk. So at present, there's only one note on this that may be just slightly pingy, and if I were to have another close-up look at the thing and see whether I'd be comfortable with taking any more metal off or not. Who knows?
It's still incredibly low action for a Squier.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if I put it up a little bit, yeah. I mean, 1.5mm on any Strat would be good. So you can see that I'm getting dirty. I'm alright with that.
One thing I've noticed that you don't use a fret rocker.
Yeah, not and this doesn't make any sense anymore.
Doesn't make any sense,
No.
yeah.
I did when I did a kind of overall level, but then if that level is just meaningless, I'm transporting the same problems.
Yeah, you're still just...
I'm going to stick with that.
Well, you know that fret after it's just a little bit higher,
and,
don't you?
and I'm going to sandpaper, and if it's still there, I'm going to raise this a tiny fraction rather than take any more metal off. There, my son, is the technique.
Nice.
And we'll get it back out and you can have a go on yours.
Yeah.
So having done this, we have one deliciously filthy pile of stuff, and we've now got some strings to take off.
But strings that you can restring with afterwards.
Look at that.
Because we'll be able to use them on mine. So restring it before I go and put a nice set of the Darios on it and chop all the ends off.
True. Yeah, it's absolutely right. I used to recommend when you strung a Strat first time is leave 4 inches of, or 2 or 3 inches of straight until you've finished everything. In case you need to take it off and push it back through. But the same applies for this.
Well, for like shop strings. Yeah. Like I have a very specific way of stringing my guitar, and I tend to leave it with about 2 or 3 fingers worth up at the top, and then wind that up. And some people go like, well, now you're introducing more stress into the string by winding it. It's like, well, you could just wrap it round, or you could.
I have a technique, and it's back 1 fret over and under, sort of self-locking thing. But okay, so Mark is going to do.
That's part of the joy of guitars, is everyone does it.
Yeah, but my way's right, and you're an idiot, and you should have your license taken away. You should never be allowed to do guitars.
To have a guitar.
Oh, no,
I don't. I've got a guitar license.
Even this gets it snagged up at the end. I mean, for God's sakes, can't you just come out like you were supposed to?
Oh, still one at a time.
I know, but I thought I could pull the lot out.
I thought if I just yanked the lot out, it would work straight away. Everyone loves a smart ass standing behind the workman, like making comments.
This one's getting caught up in the screw, and this one doesn't want to come out at all. I'm not being particularly gentle, I know. Right, would you like to bail them up in a nice, tidy, graceful thing that we can reuse? Right, so we are in a nice place. Well, nice place. There's still loads of work to go, but it's getting there, and this is the way you start to sense the final furlong. And this is only Mike's guitar, not even yours, but it's I mean, if you want to, you could. I don't know if we've got enough. We've got room.
I think
okay, right. I was going to say we could get yours out and prepare yours.
No crazy rush.
Okay. When it comes to it, do you want to have a go at doing the things on yours and I oversee it? And might as well.
Maybe, yeah.
You might as well. What's your name, Tom? Okay, now, once you've got that stuff out, your strings off, we now have a set of nicely level strings. There are tiny little scratches down here, but I'll sand those out hopefully. The next thing I'm going to do is just go over the frets again with marker pen. And this time it's going to do the same, serve the same purpose as a guide as before, but this time it's going to tell us the progress of the next tool, and the next tool is the fret profiling tool, or fret crowning tool.
What do you use for that?
Well, I use the Squier Diamond concave offset diamond file.
That's good. I use a flat file.
That thing there?
This thing here?
Yeah, and it's got two concave file edges. One is a jumbo and one is a medium. And hopefully Squier, somebody asked me on, oh my god, somebody asked me on YouTube, how do you tell which is which? You have to experiment and you have to guess. It's really terrible. I had to scratch my own.
Oh, so medium
and jumbo. I had to scratch my own.
There is nothing on there, just 5054.
Trial and error.
30GH, and then nothing on the other side.
I don't
so feedback to Squier, like maybe. Oh, I suppose. Can you look at it?
Yeah, I did in the end.
Yeah, that one is slightly. Well, you got it labelled the other way.
No, I'm sure I got it right.
That looks.
No,
Well,
you're wrong. You know that. Anyway, look. So what did I say we got? Well, we've got jumbo frets, right? Let's just carry on with the work.
Yeah.
So the idea of this machine is, it's a concave file. It's going to. The idea is it sits over that, and it will, first of all, because of the nature of its shape, that curved surface will cut into the sharp flat edges of the file of the fret first. So, and it's pretty easier to show in a picture form. So you have, we have a fret that's shaped like that, and this file is designed in a concave shape like that, and you probably in
but
that big,
smaller-ish,
yeah. And you sit it over there, and as you bring this down, right, it's going to contact here and here first, and it's going to level those off until you've got a nice round shape. But the secret is we have to make it so that we just take off this, right, and this, whatever that, you know, the edge bits, and don't touch that, right? Because if we touch that, then we're changing the relative height of the frets, and that will undo the work we've already done. So how do we use this tool to just shape round off these shoulders of this flattened file fret, without taking any? How can we be sure we haven't taken any off the top? And that's why we use the marker pen. And I'll show you close up. It's probably an easier way of looking at it. We've got quite a good close up with this sort of camera. So when I run this down here, what you may be able to see, I don't know if you can, but running this file over here, it's contacting the very edges, the flattened edges of the fret, and down the middle it's leaving a very thin strip of black marker pen, and that means it's untouched.
Yep.
So if I can go work the top of this file until there's only a little bit of marker pen. Sometimes it takes it away, but I can see a little bit left. It's better when you're working on a really flat fret, because like this one here, because you can really see. I think you should be able to see that one better. We're now starting to grind down the edges, and we've left the thin line in the middle, and the more you work it, the thinner that line down the middle will get, and we can tip from side to side a little bit to kind of work our way in. But ultimately we're just aiming to stop before we take away that little bit of marker. Now often we aren't going to leave it totally unbroken, but the closer we can stop to that little thin line, the better it will be, the more even our frets will be. Then we come to frets like this one that's had quite a bit taken off it, so it means it's very flat at the edges, and that's going to take a bit more working, slower. It'll be slower to do this one. We've got to work this one more at the edges than the middle, and eventually we'll get the edges rounded off, and we'll get that line of black down the middle as thin as we can get it, given the nature of the fret that we're working with. Sometimes it isn't always possible, but it's a game of getting as much or as good a thinner line as you can get. Some frets that didn't need any working go silver immediately, because you're basically hitting the top of them straight away, because the only thing that stops you hitting the top of the fret is the sticky out shoulder. So if it's not been worn at the edges or anywhere, it's not been flattened, I should say, you'll be suddenly, this concave surface will hit the concave
top of the
fret. And so as soon as that happens, you just stop and you move on to the next one. So this one did that right in the centre. There was nothing, but the edges have had flattened spots. So we've got to really just work the edges and not anything else. It's not exactly easy and it's not exactly scientific, but you sort of can stop yourself from going any further.
I tell you, it takes me a lot longer to do it with a flat file.
Yeah.
By being carefully rounding each fret. Like that's.
So the other file I would have used, which I did use to begin with, which costs very little, which is jammed up here with all my tools, is the three-sided file, which has got a soft edge, right, and then a V shape, and it's got a surface on all the sides. And actually this is quite a nice tool to use because you kind of work it up and down the side of the fret and you tilt it just gently, and you can see as it tilts over it starts to take away the black marker. Then you switch sides and you run it gently down the other side, and again you begin to tilt it over, and you're using the softened edge so it doesn't damage the fret, and then you kind of run it down that side until you have just worn off that edge. In fact, that's actually more accurate. It's a more precise method. It just takes you longer. So it's one of those things, if you've got millions of guitars to do, you probably end up taking a quicker way out, which is this one.
Whilst you're doing that, I'm going to take a couple.
Good man. Can I have 2 sugars in my tea, please? I'm needing a boost. We'll be through with this pretty quick. He doesn't know. And we'll be able to get back onto his guitar, which we've refretted as well. And unusually we're doing all of it in one day, which I don't usually do. There's usually a kind of a cooling off overnight period. Often a set of frets are clamped overnight, but in this case we've done it all in one day. So there's the slight chip. It's not a problem. It's unlikely to get in the way of any serious playing, but I don't want to wear the frets down just to remove that tiny little scratch on these frets. Okay, sorry about the picture, I've just left you staring at nothing much. Right. I'm hoping, I haven't really had a chance to listen back to the audio on these latest, come on little fly, these latest guitar setup videos, so I'm hoping that it's good enough. Right, so those are all done. Then the next stage of this really is pretty boring, and I'm not going to put you through it and force you to watch it, so this will be a camera off affair. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a set of sandpapers. We've got 800, we've got 600, 6, 8, and we've got probably got 1,000 in here somewhere. It's quite a lot of different choices. 1,000, and we'll go 12, 1,000, and we'll go 12, and 6, where's 12? 8, and there's 12. 12, okay. So, just going to move the bike thingy. Whatever. Yeah, so I'm going to tear up some pieces of paper. And we're going to basically sand out 6 and 8, 6 and 8, 2 and 2. Yeah, we're going to basically sand all of these frets to a polish using these different grades of paper, and we'll go through 600 to 800, and then 1,000, then 1,200, then 1,500 on a set of micromesh right the way through to 12,000, which makes a very, very nice shine. and that's your lot. So it's basically taking the scratches that we've got there and making them smaller and smaller as we go until they're tiny, and then effectively a state of shine and polish, which is cool. So this takes about half an hour to do properly, and hence I won't force you to watch it all the way through. And it creates a load of dust, which I try to keep down by mopping it up sometimes halfway through. Okay, so there are my sets of actual physical papers. Alongside that we've got the micro mesh set. Let's put you back up on your stand a bit higher. Micro mesh set ranging from 1500 to 12,000, and there's our set of papers, and I'm going to use a block as well. So just a key thing if you're going to do this, remember to make sure that you are pressing downwards onto the frets rather than flat across them. We don't want to flatten them off anymore. Our aim is to round them up. Actually, what I'll probably do is put a little bit of tape over here, keep some of the muck off the pickups. Yeah, so we want to round them, so we want the fingers and the pad to follow the arch of the frets as opposed to flattening them. And that's why I start off using my fingers, just to feel the shape of it and to try and take off all of the pen by pressing down into the fret. And also the important thing is to not stop at any one place longer than any other, and just keep it moving. Now I've got to watch out here that there's some paper peeling off. I don't want the fingerboard to become exposed and damaged, so I just keep an eye on that. If it comes off any more, I'm going to put another piece on from down here. I've got some spare bits sticking to the board that I used in the first place. With a bit of luck I can just make this stick on. Yay! Oh, he's got hobnobs, no way!
Yeah.
He's got the hobnobs. Nice one. So I'm through into the sanding process.
Oh, awesome.
Which is...
Keep your tea over here then, so
yeah.
Dust
crunchy tea. And I've got to put a bit more paper on here to stop it scratching. This is 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200. Where did it start coming off there? 1,200, and then onto micro mesh, which is 1,500 through to 12,000. So it's a real run through all the grades. And the main thing is...
Do you use those flat polish rubbers anymore?
Only when I do a light setup.
Right.
They don't really have any role in this. I use them if somebody brings me a guitar like an acoustic and I'm not going to do fret leveling, then I'll use them to freshen up the fret. Or if somebody's 5 minutes, you know.
So yeah, I find them, if I just need to do a quick fret polish.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what I'd use them for. But this by the time this finishes, it's about 20 minutes of scraping away. But by the time it's done, this will be shining. But I'm going to save the viewer the misery of watching all of this while I drink my tea and eat hobnobs. Woo! Blue, white and red, we're ready. So this is restringing the guitar. The frets nicely polished up, levelled, reprofiled and polished. And we're going to put these Roto Sound strings in, the ones that come with a free extra toppy. And get it up to tension and then stretch out all of the slack. Yeah, which is my favourite thing to do because it's boring, but it makes such a difference to how the guitar plays. And I keep saying on these videos, and to anyone who listens, if you're in the business of selling guitars, or if you're just selling them to somebody and you put some new strings on, if you want them to be pleased with it, stretch all the slack out of it, because then the people will go away.
Or even if you're just in the business of playing guitar.
Yeah, that too.
You string it yourself, you know.
That too.
Like,
but yeah,
stretch them.
But one of the simplest ways to win, you know, is if you are gonna sell a guitar, you know, put.
They got 3.
Yeah. That's a spare 10.
Another spare 10.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, if certainly if you're somebody who sells them, you know, the first minute out of the box, if that thing goes out of tune, that's the whole first impression.
Yeah. Oh, maybe the guitar's not right because it just goes out of tune really easily.
And if often the buyer doesn't know about stretching all the slack out, so you know, if you can,
especially if they're a first timer.
Yeah. And they just go, oh, it's awful, you know, I can't get it stay in tune. And if they then restring it and it still doesn't go in tune because they don't know about taking the slack out, then they're just going to think the guitar you sold them was crap.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a silly thing to end up with.
So many dust gatherers in corners of bedrooms.
Yeah. Right. So, Mike, if you're watching this, you're going to play with the tremolo on this and have a go at setting it. If you do set it, I'm setting the action now with it in a fixed position, so it's kind of locked down by virtue of the springs underneath. If you rear it up to put it into a floating position, you're going to raise the action. So you're going to need to consider changing the action with the those little feet grub screws. So the point being is bringing the tremolo, or technically the vibrato, into play changes the action that you've set. So just be aware of that. I'm obviously currently setting it, or have done all of this based on the thing being fixed. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you need to be conscious of resetting it and probably lowering it, because as the plate kicks up, so will the action will come up with it. So my Henry lives in the shed with me.
I'm just tidying.
He's cool. He's
background Mark tidying. Henry's
my mate. Very efficient. Sometimes when I'm doing something like routing or extreme sanding, you know, I'll tie him up on a string, have it all sort of pulled in strings, pulling it in lots of different directions. So
you've got like a bench.
Yeah, constant air extraction. Not completely as efficient as a proper air extractor, but better than nothing. Okay. Now I'm so confident that I don't need to rethread these. I'm just chopping them off right now as we go through. So my way of doing it, learned from someone else but perfectly good way, is all the way through, pull back a fret, wind on, hold this taut, let the loose string go under the held string. As it comes round, push the held string under the loose string, and then it's done. It's a sort of a little locking thing with as little material, a little string wound round as possible, so it keeps the amount of stored up slack to a minimum. Okay, so I'm not going to do much with this after I've just stretched the strings a bit, and then we'll switch back. We've got some work to do on Mark's Epiphone Les Paul Studio. Is that our studio?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Still has an arch top. That's the important thing.
You call it an arch top, do you? I suppose it's a contoured top.
Yeah. It's not the flat top of the Gisborne.
Is there
Les Paul Juniors?
Is there a flat Les Paul Junior?
Yeah, they make them with the just completely flat top like an SG.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not right.
No, I don't like them either. If you're going to have a massive heavy lump of mahogany,
might as well have shape.
Might as well have some shape to it, yeah.
Okay, all strings aboard for you, my friend. Thank you. So, just for the last bit of this video, as soon as you've got the strings on, stretch them in this way, thumb and forefinger. So you're making the stretch point here and here, not there and there. You don't want to yank them this way, they'll break or snap, like Mark said earlier, they'll snap, run the risk of snapping the nut. So you want to go up and down the whole string, stretching out as much of its natural slack as possible. Switch to the next string, and you ideally, if you've got sense, you'll do this 4 or 5 times. After the first time you might tune up to a tuner and just get everything to pitch, and then stretch it all again and just note how much the pitch has changed. Then do it all again and note how much the pitch has changed, tune it up again, do it all again, and so on. And just for your information, keep going until it doesn't lose any more pitch, or it doesn't drop any more pitch. And however long it takes you, that is how long. Damn it, that sometimes happens. It hasn't gone through the block properly and it sits there, so now I've got more string than I want on that peg, but it's better than it breaking anyway. Yeah, so however long it takes you to wring out all the detuning, and it will eventually stop and stabilise, but that is how much, it's a marker of how much slack there is in your strings. And if you don't wring it out now, it will come out bit by bit over the next year and a half or whatever, and it will stay in there as long as that.
I do like that tuning fork function on that little lamp. That's very cool. Nobody likes tuning.
Nobody. So again, off you go, back through it again, right? Stretch, stretch, stretch. 5 times, I promise you. And then following that, some pull-ups like this across the thing, and then some bendy notes. Stretch as many big notes as you can on the guitar, and then watch how much it detunes it. Like I've probably mentioned several times in this video, maybe certainly have today, it's got nothing to do with your tuners. If it's going out of tune, it isn't because your tuners are crap, and it won't do it forever. You're not destined to either buy new tuners or have a guitar that constantly goes out of tune. It will stop going out of tune the minute you put the work in to get rid of all the slack that is either in the free string or in the tied up in the post, or the string around the post. And you can do it if you give it half an hour of doing this, right? But it won't happen unless you do that. See how much? Imagine that coming out over months, a little bit at a time.
Tuning your guitar all the time, every day.
Well, it stabilises, and then it does it when you press a note or push a bend. I'm going to stop now, but if you carry on doing that, you'll get rid of all the slack, and then you'll have a... Ooh. Very nice, that'll do. Still got that little bit of zizz in there. We could probably cure that with a tiny little move on either the truss rod or a tiny little adjustment down there, but I'll come back and tweak that a bit later on. That's it for now. So there you go, Mike. There is your refretted jumbo fret refretted Affinity, Squier Strat Affinity, pretty much ready to go. Now this one, if you look, this is mostly preserved the little bits in the end, so I treated it as a bound guitar and cut inwards and just placed inside of that. Obviously not all of it, but most of it went that way. Yeah, okay, so there you go, Affinity Squier. There's Mike to do the intonation and set the tremolo. So thanks for watching, see you again soon.